Welcome to Picks with the Professor, the show where a real statistics professor and his friends give you sports betting tips. I'm your host, Professor Sides, and in this episode of Major League Baseball picks, on the prices that make for good bets using the predictive mathematical model I've built, affectionately known as Sideline for Games, scheduled to be played on Friday, August 4th, 2023. You can here check out the webpage on the banner. It's www.pickstheprofessor.com/new for some explanations and community rules. Remember, if you're interested in projections of picks for every single game, sign up on Dub Club. That link's in the show description. Costs under $1 per day. You'll get first five money lines, run lines, totals, all sorts of goodies, and of course, exclusive access to our Discord chat where we talk about other sports, things we like, player props, also live betting. I mean, all sorts of goodies over there in that Discord. A lot of great sports bettors over there to interact with as well. Remember, sports are unpredictable. So the discussion on this show projects a typical game, does not try to forecast it to a T, as that would be a foolish and impossible goal. There are no right sides or wrong sides, or other prices where any side should be played, whether using my model, another model, or just identifying what that price is ahead of time. That's the sort of thinking that's going to be key to growing your bankroll instead of draining it. There are ups and downs, but this sort of thinking, that stuff balances out in the long run, but it's simply hard to foresee before it happens. In other words, please understand good and bad variance will occur. So while the long run profitability has been proven, winning every single day is an impossible reality for any gambler. Cousin Jared, it feels like maybe we've got the ship going the right direction again. I feel much more encouraged after the previous 2 weeks. So I was talking about ups and downs. They're going to happen. We know it. It doesn't make it any more fun or easy to deal with. But so far this week, the A-plus play of the day, 3-1 for a nice little 39% ROI, A-grade sides. On the 21 games we picked, a 20% ROI, all totals, 20, almost 30 games picked, an 8% ROI this week on those. This is, of course, on all the picks on Dub Club. Everything seems to be rolling back in the right direction. Cousin Jared, I don't know if you know this. This will make your heart happy here. Totals are eyeing a fifth straight profitable week, and all of the profits have an ROI of at least 5% or higher. So the total's been rock and rolling as well.
I mean, it's sometimes I get the impression you actually know what you're doing. Sometimes. That's just my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's just my opinion.
I mean, we always have to consider that possibility. We obviously, no show here this weekend, so I want to do a little quick recap. Hopefully we can continue that into the weekend. We have a lot to talk about today. I feel like this show could be an hour just talking about three games and then the discussions that come from it. I was thinking about this last night, and we kind of joked about this yesterday, but yeah, obviously if you're looking for just like the quickest picks, if you're looking for the quickest picks, sign up on Dub Club, right? You don't have to listen to us jabber. You just get all the information. You get a cheat sheet that's got like 20 sentences of like information bulleted out for each game, including weather information, first five run lines, reverse run lines, first five money lines, all sorts of good stuff, total projections, where I would play the totals. It gives you all you need. And that's if you want the quick hitter. Sign up on Dub Club. It's under $1 per day. If that's what you're looking for, you will get so much great information. And I am so terrible at marketing and advertising and selling. It's like, in hindsight, it might have been a terrible idea for this to become my career, because I do math and I watch sports, right? But I would be remiss if I did not mention, I don't know, half the people don't even watch this, so no one's hearing this probably, but I tweeted this out and I sent it out to our Dub Club members. We've got a half off if you're locking in 3 months opportunity. DM me on Twitter, hit me up on Discord, however I can get you the link for that. That gets you through the rest of baseball, the entirety of the MLB playoffs, half of football season. Again, we're doing college football and NFL, going to have a model for both of those. So a lot. So if you want a great price, if you've been on the fence, if you're with us on monthly, you want to switch to that. If we've been on the fence, half off for 3 months is a pretty good little deal. Then you get a lot of information. Hopefully if you're coming here, it's because you want to hear the deep dive and the thoughts and where our heads are. And there's just a lot of things to be thinking about as we're handicapping this. And that's we're going to get into it today, I think, Cousin Jared.
Yep. I agree with that assessment.
All right. Well, before we get to it, because again, a lot to talk about. Those quick reminders: if you're on YouTube, please hit that like button. If you're not subscribed yet, please do so. It's free. If you turn on notifications, you won't miss any of the content that we're putting out there. Again, Major League Baseball, college basketball, college football, and adding NFL this fall. You can see how I scale my picks in the Google Sheet that has the season results. That links in the show description. It's got team rankings, pitcher ratings, just a bunch of interesting things to check out there that have to how we're doing by each team, some ballpark information, all sorts of goodies. But with the scaling with picks, as always, take what you like and leave the rest. Because we're going to start off with Royals and Phillies. And my first discussion point for you, and again, what's going to be a 3-hour episode. It's not, but my first discussion point, should we only cover the games down the stretch that matter, or should we cover the ones that are going to make people the most money? I'm curious what the viewer thinks on this. So if you drop a comment, viewer, if you have an opinion on that, because I'm kind of curious. I know that for the people on Dub Club, I mean, that's where you're really wanting to make the money if you're with us over there and you get all the information, right? But here, when we deep dive into a game and talk about different things, I'm curious if people are more interested. I'm curious what kind of viewer we have. Are they more interested in the games that are on TV, the bigger games, the playoff, implications, or do they mind watching this trash? Because this is going to be a garbage game, but I think we can make a lot of money on it. I don't know what your thoughts on this are, Cousin Jay.
I mean, I have 1,000 other sources that I can go to if I want to break down the MLB division races or something like that. I came here because I'm interested in profiting on these games a little bit. So sure, I want to talk about the ones that we're going to potentially make money on, because I can get that other stuff anywhere.
All right. Well, if that's what you're interested in, I think this is a great money-making opportunity, even though it won't be the highest quality game. Jordan Lyles and Aaron Nola. Lyles probably not as bad as that 6.15 ERA. I think he's pitching better as of late. I don't think that's a really high bar, because he started off the first 20. He said 20 starts, so the first probably 15 were just terrible starts. So probably a little bit better, but still a full standard deviation below average, according to Sideline. Aaron Nola, as we've talked about with him before, a little bit of a down season, 4.43 ERA. Now, the underlying metrics are a little bit more positive. Still a very good pitcher, but definitely not what he was coming into the season. His rating at the start of the season was closer to 2 full standard deviations better than league average, right around that 70 threshold, which that 70 mark is about where the best pitchers land, Jacob deGrom aside. Current rating 78. So definitely fallen back in a little bit of a disappointing season, but a guy who's always pitched a little bit better at home, a little bit more than most pitchers. I don't know if it's about comfortability there, home run tendencies and where the ball flies. I don't know what it is, but he tends to do a little bit better at home, more than most pitchers do. Obviously, the Phillies are at home here tonight. Do have a chance of rain, so something to keep an eye on here. About a 35% coverage of rain in the area all night long. So that's just something to keep an eye on. But the wind will be blowing out, boosting the runs a little bit, because we'll have 5 to 10 mile an hour winds. When you break down these two teams, well, the Phillies have been a little bit disappointing this season. While their offense is just around average, Trey Turner down to the 8-hole yesterday, which really floored me. They're still obviously a better team than the Royals, but the Royals won 6 in a row. If you're talking about, some people here, maybe we tried to talk about not getting distracted by small sample sizes. Well, if you're distracted by small sample sizes, you think the Royals are probably going to win the World Series this year. We're going to the Phillies on this one. Going to play the -1, as you talked about here a lot recently. Splitting the wager between the money line and the run line is what you can do if your book or books do not offer this -1. The implied price by splitting your wager would be around this -177 number. According to Sideline, the Phillies win 76% of the time. The money line price should be -323. The A grade threshold is -269. If that's a little steep for you, which that is pretty steep, the run line, according to Sideline, they cover 61% of the time, which would lead to a price of -154, and an A grade is -133 or better. The current run line price is in the -115 range. Cousin Jared, tell us more about this game.
Yeah, so but at this point, what I'm going to say. The starting pitching discrepancy here is quite large. Aaron Nola, a solid, very good pitcher. Jordan Lyles has not been so far this season. So that's the number one thing I'm looking at. And you mentioned that Nola does a little bit better at home than he does on the road. Just doing some quick looking at the Kansas City Royals. the Royals have won a grand total of 8 road games since the beginning of May.
That seems impossible.
Yeah, and
That's over 3 months.
Yeah, and I mean that's with them winning. I don't know that they in this 6-game win streak or all of those games at home. I
think they're all at home.
So yeah, they were all at home. So that did them no good in that respect.
No.
So only 8 road wins in the past handful of months, and
that's probably in a sample size of like 40 games, if I had to guess. Just off the top of my head, doing some quick math, 40, 45 games is probably how many road games they've played in that stretch. I mean, you're probably talking about almost 40 road losses.
Yeah. It's over about 35 or so games. And so, it just has not been good. Anyway, so the starting pitching discrepancy there and the Royals' tendency to just not do much at all on the road. I like backing Aaron Nola in this spot a lot.
Yeah. Couple follow-up questions here. Number one, -1 run line. That's always the question on something like this. Is that this -177 is pretty steep? Do you just want to go to the run line getting close to even money, or is this just you're hedging a little bit here, but playing a little bit safer just in case they accidentally win by 1? Just the total play into that. The fact that the projection here is 9.7. Kind of where's your head on that?
Yeah. So what I would say is that. Me personally, I would still probably play it on the money line, especially if you can get it around like -200 or something like that. -177, of course, I would love that. Probably anything around -200 or below, I would probably say go ahead and take the
-1.
Yeah. Take the -1. Yeah. The other thing, I like the first 5 in this game too, because I think the starting pitching mismatch is so bad. So if I were looking for an alternate way to look at this or wanted to split my bets, this is a game where I would have no problem doing that, just because you got Nola versus Lyles.
Yeah, that's a good point there. So again, this -1 is kind of you're having to lay like a -240-ish or 230-ish or something on the money line, but you're getting better on the run line. Again, if you want to create a -1 market yourself, you bet you risk on the run line exactly what you would win on the money line. It creates a -1 market. And that's what I've essentially done here to get it in this range. Because it sounds like what you're saying, as long as the kind of implied here is in this ballpark, which probably will be, this is the way that you would play it. If it gets steeper, that's when you would just go to the straight run line. But a lot of that's personal preference. I was going to mention that first 5 as well. I think that's a great point here. I was kind of eyeing that. According to Sideline, the Phillies win the first 5 60% of the time. That is win by at least a run. That is not pushes removed. That is if they tie, you lose. And according to Sideline, that creates an A-grade price on that market of -131 as of this morning. I don't have a price in that market, but it is starting to trickle out there. By the time this is out there, it will be out there at almost every single book. So -131 would be the A-grade threshold for a first 5 run line on the Phillies. I think it's another interesting way to play it, especially if you are concerned about juice. Last question of this game, total is 9. Projection is 9.7. Cousin Jared, are you interested in going over 9? You have that push protection, or on a full slate, you got a full 15 games and 14 of them are at night. So people's bankrolls might be a little bit thinner than usual. It's not a college basketball Saturday. It's not a college football and college basketball Saturday, right? So you're not the thinnest of all, but is this one of those where you are holding out for that 8.5? You want the value of the win on the 9, or is this a situation with wind blowing out, Jordan Lyles, bad Royals bullpen, questionable Phillies bullpen, where 9 would be sufficient for you, and you could at least give a slight recommendation of playing the over 9?
Yeah, so man, a lot of things. It's funny how you can ask a question like so simple, and I can have like 1,000 things go through my head. We just talked about yesterday how the Royals bullpen is one of the worst in baseball. They traded away Chapman, they traded away Barlow. This year, you got to think that Lyles isn't going to go very long in this game. You mentioned the wind blowing out, so you've got an 8%. The weather's going to help you 8% here, score more runs. The park factor is a little over 100 anyway, so slightly more runs in this ballpark than a normal ballpark. So I kind of like the over too, even at 9, just because I've got that push protection there at 9. So I kind of like the over 9 as well. Honestly, if you just wanted to split your bets about 3 different ways on this game, I don't see anything wrong with that.
Or 7 different ways, because of course, if anytime you kind of like the over and you like a team to win, the team total over makes a lot of sense. You could go Phillies team total over. There's a lot of ways. That's why I said this is a game that there's a lot of ways I think you can make money off it. You got to kind of figure out what you want to do. Hopefully, what we've talked about in discussion kind of leads you to a way that you want to attack it and come up with a decision there. But there's a lot of ways I think to make money on this. Viewer, I think if it was me, because I think sometimes times people just want like direct recommendations. So I'm going to kind of wrap this up with a direct recommendation. If you're making one play on this game, my one play is this -1. It's technically 2, I guess, depending on what you're doing. If you're at DraftKings, I know they have a -1 market, but it's just take the Phillies to win. I think that's the strongest one play. If you want to spread your money out a little bit, I do think some sort of combination. I like the first 5-run line. I like the full game. I like the full game over. I like the Phillies team total over. So if you're splitting between bets, that if you're making multiples, that would be the way to go. But if you're just making one bet, the one pick would be Phillies -1 here. It is some steep odds, but I think it's a good price. We're always talking about price sensitivity, and that takes us directly into a great discussion on the next game about why price matters. And I think we're going to talk for an hour on this one game. We're not actually. I'm being facetious. Mets at the Orioles, 7 to 5 p.m. Eastern. A nice night in Baltimore. We're going to be low 80s to start, upper 70s to close. Breeze blowing out. Another chance of rain. They're up in the similar part of the country, so something to keep an eye on there. Slightly hitter-friendly ballpark, just like in Philly. Boost to the runs as well based off the weather. David Peterson for the Mets moved to the bullpen after the Mets decided to trade their 2 best starters to the state of Texas. Back in the rotation, a 5.92 ERA, but we've backed David Peterson a few times as a starter here. The underlying metrics for him are very positive. The model thinks he's still above average. And there's a lot of value here backing Peterson because people are thinking that he's not very good based off that ERA. That ERA has been accumulated in 62 innings, and ERA does not stabilize with a sample size of 62 innings. Some of the underlying metrics do, and they're very positive on him. I think he's actually a decent pitcher here for the Mets. Of course, the issue is that's the only thing the Mets have going for them here. Their bullpen, not very good. Offense, very mediocre. Orioles have been fantastic, and we've long talked about how good the Orioles have been to us, backing them so many times. Dean Krimmer for them, very run-of-the-mill average pitcher, 4.66 ERA. Underlying metrics suggest maybe a tiny bit better than that. Just an average guy to go out there and throw once every 5 days. But lo and behold, Cousin Jared, we are going to be on the Mets at plus 154. It is an A-grade pick. I'm shocked. I'm shocked that the model told us to back the Mets. We have been all over the Orioles. The Mets are a disaster. They just got swept by the Royals. But, Cousin Jared, I do want to point out something to you. The Twins got swept by the Royals. And then, do you know what the Twins did right after that?
No.
They took 2 or 3 from the Cardinals, including a nice easy winner for us last night. So apparently you can get swept by the Royals, and then you can look good the next series. So obviously the Cardinals are not as good as the Royals, I thought. But a lot of Royals talk here today. Because Jared, Mets plus 154.
Yeah. So I don't feel comfortable about this, But I want to ask you, with all of the trades that the Mets have made, my first thought is well, this team just sold everybody, and this team isn't very good now. But when I really stopped to think about it, it's like, okay, they traded Verlander and Scherzer, so take those guys out. They're only going every 5th day. The trades that they made, like how much of an impact did that make on what Sideline thinks of this team? If you're looking at a game where Scherzer or Verlander's not pitching.
And that's a great point that, starting pitching isn't the end all, be all end all in a game. And it should only account for, each starting pitcher should only account for, 20 to 40% of the handicap, because they're probably not going to go 9 innings. We talked about that last night with Ohtani, and my goodness, look at exactly what happened in that game. Angels have a lead in the 9th inning, and then the bullpen blows it again, right?
Let the record show the only game he has not left with cramps or a blister or something is the game that I said he was going to do that, and then he pitched a complete shutout. I'm not mad at all.
Yeah, one hitter as well. Just dominated. His best outing of the season by far. We're going to talk in this segment. We're going to talk more about games last night. I think we're going to talk about this game. But it's a great point that they traded away 2 great starting pitchers. But when you look at what else they traded, it doesn't really affect their day-to-day. Now, part of it, you could argue that might be the problem. Right, that is the problem, that the Mets weren't able to trade away because they didn't have any good players. But the model had the Mets at about a half standard deviation to a full standard deviation better than league average on offense before a couple of trades. Now they're around average. So it has hurt the offense a little bit, but it's still a league average offense that doesn't fall very far behind the Orioles offense. It's not as good as the Orioles, but it's not that far behind it. Bullpen-wise, it had them just worse than average. Now it has them a full standard deviation below league average. The bullpen always was a problem with Diaz. It's made the bullpen a little bit worse. It made the offense a little bit worse, but it's not drastic differences. I think there's a little bit of an overreaction what happens at the Royals here. But I think we have to remember, and we haven't talked a lot about the Royals this year and how bad they are, because we've been talking about the A's, and the A's started off so terrible. And we talked about the A's because we had all the jokes in the Discord in the offseason about how we're going to back the A's, and they had that start. But we talked about how well we've done with the A's because we have to understand bad teams are going to get hot. Bad teams are going to win games. Then bad teams are going to lose games. And you got to figure out what is a good price to back and fade those teams. We largely stayed off of the sides in the Royals-Mets game because we were mostly priced pretty well. But just because the Royals have been winning a few games doesn't change anything. The A's had a massive hot streak as well. And look what happened to them against the Dodgers. We rode the Dodgers that first game -1.5, -1, whatever we did. That last game last night, that was the A+ play of the day, was the Dodgers on the run line. And look at how easy of a win that was. And that middle game, we nailed the over, and we talked about if you had to play it, we'd still be on the Dodgers. So you can have both thoughts, and that's where I want to make sure that people are thinking about this, right? You don't have to be a prisoner to only having one thought, right? You can't. You don't have to just say, I'm going to fade this team or I'm going to back this team. You could say, there's prices where you would do both. There's situations where you would do both. You have to understand the nuances of life, which is bad teams play well sometimes, good teams play bad sometimes. Is that what is most predictive? That's the question you have to ask yourself. Are those 6 games predictive of what's going forward for the Royals? Is those last 3 games for the Mets, is that predictive of what's going forward? Well, if you're a Mets fan, you're saying that's what the whole season's been, right? But the bottom line on this one, and where I want to kind of like bring this together, is last night we took the Pirates at plus odds. It did not work very well. Was Mitch Keller tipping his pitches? I have no idea. Those hitters were on him. And we have seen the Pirates have a pitcher earlier this season tip his pitches. So maybe some of that was happening. We don't know. Yep. But the point is, you can't complain about the Pirates and say, oh, well, the Brewers were the obvious pick. Because if you were to make that comment, the other game we talked about, the Mariners and the Angels, you'd have had the same thought on the Angels. So if you're going to try to be all high and mighty, do I have to put explicit if I say dumbass on here? I hope I don't. And say, well, the Brewers were the obvious pick. Then you would have also said the Angels were the obvious pick. And guess what? You lost money on those 2 games. Yep. You have to look at the prices. Didn't work for us on the Pirates at the plus odds, but it did on the Mariners. Take those 2 games together. What happened? Because we made money. And that's what I always stress about here with the Mets. This is about the price at plus 154. This is a little bit too high. In the long run, this is the type of pick that's going to make us money. It doesn't mean the Mets are going to win. I don't know if they're going to win. I don't have a crystal ball. But according to the model, the Orioles win this 57% of the time. They should be favored, but the price should be -131 rather than the steep price that you're looking at on the Orioles right now in the -160s. So they're just a little bit overpriced here, which has been very rare. The Orioles haven't been overpriced hardly at all here this whole season. But we're eking into an A grade. If you're just on the other side of plus 150, you're probably looking more at a B+ grade. But the Mets are I cannot believe this, worth a look backing. We haven't backed the Mets a ton here as of late, but this is a good spot for them. I said a lot of words, Cousin Jared. Do you have anything to add?
Well, I mean, I feel like you just gave a very nuanced point of what I was going to say, which was I felt uncomfortable about this. But when you really look at what they traded away, and if it's not a day where Verlander or Scherzer are going, this team is not what I would call materially different than what it was before. Yeah. And so last week, if you would have told me I'm backing the Mets at plus 154, I would have been like, okay, yeah, that sounds pretty good. And so I was worried because I thought they traded away a lot, but when you really isolate it and look at the lineup they're putting out there each day, it's not that much different. So sure, you have convinced me. Let's roll with the Mets.
The last thing I want to talk about, we're talking about the total, but before we get to that, I do want to have one other quick discussion point. And I don't think there's an answer to this. So really, and what we want to talk about here is this point of the show is to get you thinking about things you might not be thinking about. Ask yourself how you feel about it. And if you agree with kind of what we're saying, we've convinced you on something great. If not, that's fine too, but something, viewer, for you to think about. And it's kind of, I'm going to play a little bit devil's advocate here. The downside to the Mets might be they've had a disappointing season. When are they throwing in the towel? How do the veterans feel about that? You can't blindly say bad teams get worse. Teams have nothing to play for, get worse. Great example, last day of the regular season last year, the lines were all jacked because everybody put money on, oh, this team needs to win this game. And I just was like, I think we should just bet on the better teams. Maybe that's a crazy thought. And we went like 13-2 or 13-3 or whatever. I think it was a doubleheader. Yeah. Something crazy like that. Because it's like, to some extent, like these guys go out there and they want to play well because they like getting paid, right? the caveat to that is every individual situation is different. So I want to first off say, if you're trying to tell me every bad team gives up and throws in the towel and there's not value on them, you're flat out wrong. I'm sorry. I don't say that a lot, but you are. It's just period. Full stop, right?
Mm-hmm.
But are there situations where that happens? Absolutely. It's hard to identify them. That's kind of your concern with the Mets. When you look at a team like the Pirates, and of course, whatever the heck happened with Mitch Keller last night, we talked about him pitching better, but last night was not good, right? That aside, a team like the Pirates might play okay down the stretch. You got a lot of young guys going to be playing hard every night, trying to get a job for next year, a lot of rotating and platooning. They want to be on the field, right? Sometimes you have guys who play better because the pressure's off now, and you get to just go out there and have fun and play a game, right? And not be stressed about that. Sometimes a team, I'm thinking of the Padres have been in this boat here, the Mets, maybe the Yankees, if they fall out of it, right? So you got a veteran team that had higher expectations. Maybe it's a little bit of lack of focus and they don't play as well. That's kind of the last thought on this one. That's the caveat is, I don't know what's going to happen with the Mets. Maybe they'll play just fine going down the stretch because taking off the pressure, they've got some younger guys, some new guys that want to play. But there is that in the back of your mind. That is the one kind of caveat is, how focused are they going to be? Benefit to today, David Peterson's going to be focused. He's been in and out of the rotation. He wants to have a starting pitching job next year. He's pitching for his job next year these last 2 months to try to say, guys, pencil me into that rotation next year, pen me into that rotation. Don't just use me as a swingman. I love the underlying metrics for him. I think he's going to have a good start here most of the time going forward. I can't predict any individual game, but I think down the stretch, I think he's going to pitch really well because he has every incentive to do so, to try to play for a job next year. So again, I said a lot of words. Yeah. If you have anything to follow up on there, the floor is yours.
No. Well said.
All right, thank you. Last thing here, again, I knew we were going to talk a lot about this game and the peripheral games around it. Total in this game is 9. Projection is 10.1. If I remember correctly on this, though, there's some decent juice on that over 9. So you're looking at like a minus 120, minus 125, something like that on that over 9. Depending on your book, you may be FanDuel tends to go to the half numbers. They're probably already at 9.5. What's your thoughts on this total? Are you playing over 9.5 because of a weaker Mets bullpen? Are you playing over 9 in that push protection? What are the odds there? What's your thoughts on this total?
I would like 9, and this is one where I would like, usually if it's like minus 120, that's where I'm kind of like, I don't know about that. But if it were like fairly heavily juiced, I think I would still like the over 9 here, just for the reasons that we just talked about. But also, you and I have been to Camden Yards, and it can get hot there during the summer
and humid, and the humidity helps the ball carry too because weird molecule things that
so I like 9 here. I would rather pay a little extra to get the push protection at 9 than like go 9.5 and maybe get like closer to even odds at 9.5. I would rather have the push protection.
Okay, all right, last game here. Dodgers and Padres, what was supposed to be a fantastic series for the division. The Padres not out of it yet, of the playoff race, but almost assuredly out of the division race here. They're not even in second place in the division. I don't even think they're in third place. The Diamondbacks might be ahead of them still as well. I'm not sure exactly where the standings have fallen today. I know the Giants are in second, as good as they've been. But the Padres obviously still a lot to play for. Dodgers just wrecking shop against the A's, taking care of business like they're supposed to. We're going to be on the Dodgers here tonight at minus 105. It's a B grade pick. A grade threshold really gets you into plus odds. If you get plus odds in the Dodgers, that's where you get the A grade. Model says they win 53% of the time. Their offense is better than the Padres. Their relievers, I think, are better than the Padres. And honestly, the biggest thing I like about this game, and it's going to actually play into why I chose what I did for the pitcher prop of the day, is the fact that the Dodgers 2 nights ago ran away early and did not use any of their better relievers. The 3 relievers they used 2 nights ago were 3 of their worst relievers. Last night, they let Emmett Sheehan pitch the last 4 innings. I presume that's because Ryan Yarbrough is going to enter the rotation now. Sheehan hadn't been that good. He's been a guy we've been fading a lot. Moving him to the pen, letting him finish those last 4 innings means every good pitcher in that bullpen has now had 2 nights off entering this series, so they can use that bullpen pretty heavily. Bobby Miller, I think, is an above-average pitcher. I think he's better than that 4.37 ERA. I do think Darvish is better than his 4.53 ERA. I think it's actually a wash with regards to these starting pitchers. I think they're pretty similar. Give a bullpen edge to the Dodgers. Of course, the Padres didn't play yesterday, so their bullpen is rested as well. But the Dodgers bullpen being rested gives them a big edge, and I think their offense is just much better. I don't really think I'm breaking news by saying that. Padres offense good. It just hasn't really gotten it together. Cronenworth's had a mostly disappointing season, and they got a couple guys at the top who can hit, but just not quite the same depth and danger that the Dodgers have provided. Cousin Jared, what do you have for us on this one?
Yeah, so this is one of those things where I look at what Sideline says. Starting pitchers fairly similar to each other. You mentioned the bullpens, both bullpens rested. Maybe give the edge to the Dodgers there, and then I look at the offenses, and I think I know that I have thought about this many times this season. That, oh man, the Padres have this great offense, but the reality is that their offense has been hit and miss all season, and it really goes just as far as the top few guys in the lineup go. And this is baseball; everybody's going to have bad days, and so if they're having an off day at the top of the lineup for the Padres, Soto, Tatis,
it's a missed day in that world.
Yeah, yes,
no one's helping them out.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas you flip it to the other side of the coin, you got the Dodgers, and we just get contributions from everybody on the Dodgers. Seemingly every night, it's somebody else having a really good game. Really tough up and down the entire lineup. And I think the other thing you have to think about is this game being played in San Diego, which we know generally tends to suppress runs. In that scenario, I still feel like I trust the Dodgers to find a way to put up runs, even playing in a park like this. Whereas, like I said, with the Padres, it's just been so up and down offensively this season. So I just have a lot more faith in the Dodgers here. Honestly, I'm surprised this is -105. I would have thought this would have been Dodgers -120 or something like that. So I just have too much faith in the Dodgers, at this price.
Yeah, I think the price is a little bit lower because of the Yu Darvish respect. I think people are eyeing this as Darvish is the superior pitcher, and according to Sideline, he's slightly better. But I mean, I think it's rounding error better at this point. Right. I think the biggest thing that Darvish gives you, honestly, is a boost to the innings. He's going to go a little bit deeper than Bobby Miller is, but with the fully rested Dodgers bullpen, I don't really think that matters that much, that extra inning. If this was coming off of a tough series where the Dodgers used all their relievers, now we're talking about that really matters. I'm not sure it does here. Again, and I mentioned this yesterday on show, and I had to mention it again in the comments. Model is player-based, so all the player trades, the model does know about that. So when I talk about these ratings and the Padres bullpen getting an average rating, it knows that the Dodgers knows everything that they've done on these trades. It's all up to date. I pull in rosters every morning directly from, I don't remember if it's MLB or ESPN or somewhere. I pull the active rosters in, so we know who's there. Everything's player based, so we know about all the trades. But I think I want to add to what you said about the Dodgers, and I mentioned this in the Discord last night. I swear Freddie Freeman doubles every time he hits. He's got 350 doubles this year. It seems like it's incredible. Mookie, I swear, hits a leadoff home run every game. He's got, I don't know, 100 some odd home runs at this point. It's obviously neither one of those is true, but that's how it feels.
Yeah,
it's one of those things where the Dodgers, they're they can count on the top providing, and they can count on an inning where the bottom does something and rolls it to the top to put up a crooked number, or the top gets it going and the bottom keeps it going. They can count on that so many times to get those crooked numbers, whereas the Padres, like I said, it's just so much about the top, and that bottom has really struggled. When the Padres offense was looking a little better, they were getting some of those contributions from those guys we weren't expecting. That hasn't really been the case, right? For the most part this season, it's been a little bit in and out, but who was the Odor was there? I was gonna say Robinson Cano. I'm dating myself with that one. But Odor and Cano were the same player, right? Basically, Odor, played a little bit and had a couple of good games. For the most part, was disappointing. The Gary Sanchez thing, right? It's they're trying to get production from these guys, and for the most part, it just hasn't worked out well for them. Cousin Jared, on this game, the total 8.5. Model projects 7.6. The weather is going to suppress. The park already suppresses the runs. The weather's going to suppress the runs even more. Slight breeze in. Pretty standard night here. I will say, from a weather standpoint, when we get into August, you get less guaranteed unders in San Diego than May and June. Something about, again, I don't understand the weather. I'm sure some of our viewers do, who live out there, the May gloom, June gloom, whatever you want to call it, weird fog stuff happening. You still get more unders here in these night games. You still have a run suppressing, but it's not quite as much. A little bit extra heat, I think, burns a little bit of that off a little bit, and so it's not quite as dense in the air off the water, but model still projects some value on this one. My question to you, are you okay going under 8.5, or are you really holding out for that 9? I don't think you're ever going to see that 9 personally, but would you go under 8.5, or is that just not good enough for you?
Give me under 8.5. With like you mentioned, I think both of these starting pitchers are solid, if not spectacular. Both bullpens should be ready to go. Obviously, I think that the Dodgers are going to win this game, but I would not be surprised if either side has a really good pitching performance in this game, and one team scores like 1 or 2 runs. So give me under the 8.5. I think the bullpens and the pitchers are well rested and solid enough that they can hold one of these teams down.
Should be a playoff atmosphere. Padres obviously needing to have a really good month of August to give themselves a chance. September, Dodgers obviously want to beat the Padres every chance they can get. So should be a good game. That will take us to our pitcher prop of the day, Bobby Miller, under 5.5 strikeouts. And I mentioned part of the reason I like this prop is the fact that the Dodgers bullpen is rested. They are going to be able to go to the bullpen, give him a quick hook early. When you look at what Miller's done on innings, he's been pretty consistent at 5 or 6, but there's no reason to push him to 6 unless he's just rocking and rolling here. I think this is more of a 5-inning start for him. The Padres are in the bottom half of the league with regards to strikeouts, top half of the league. I don't know which way. I hate these. It's like college football ratings is low better, high better, right? They don't strike out. They strike out less than the average team. Maybe that's the way to work it. They're not like the least strikeout team, of course, but they strike out less than average here. Miller has gone over this prop 3 of the last 4. I don't really think that means a ton, though. There's some matchup things here. He's averaging about 5 Ks per start. He's averaging 9 per 9. I think he goes 5. Under 5.5, I think makes a lot of sense here. And again, the key caveat that I like on this one is the fact that bullpen's rested. Again, there's just no reason for them to push him too far. A nice little 5-inning 5K game makes a lot of sense. Because Jared, I want to talk about last night with Keller. Gosh, we nailed the exact, even if he's terrible, he's still going to go 5 innings, giving him a chance. We talked about the Brewers are still a strikeout team, even though they made some trades. They're still going to be on the higher end of that. And we missed it by the hook there. So we had the right idea. That's, of course, why they call it. I made the joke earlier. I have to make the dad joke, right? That's why they call it fishing, not catching, right? You're not guaranteed anything. We had the right idea that Keller could get it by having a good start. He could get it by innings, even with a bad start. He didn't. We just missed it. But if we keep getting the handicap right in that regards, and we have a 5-inning start for Miller, I like our chances. I will say the one caveat, that was at plus odds. We had a plus odds prop that we gave out on Discord, and it hit. So we had 2 pitcher props yesterday. Splitting them both at plus odds, that's a profitable way to go. This was not at plus odds, but I think this one has a much higher than 50% chance of hitting. Anything from you on this one, Cousin Jared?
Bobby Miller, if you look at his innings pitched, he's like consistently like 5 innings. He's not going to go very long in this game. And when you're getting like Soto and Tatis multiple times at the top of that lineup, those guys don't strike out a ton. And so, I think if he goes his 5 innings, I like this play.
And a couple of those guys can really drive your pitch count up as well. Even Kim, a guy like Kim, right, can not, can really drive the pitch count up. And that matters. I think the other thing, I love this pick here. The other thing about it is with those guys at the top of the lineup, there's a real chance he only goes 2 times through, and they're not going to let him face. I would not let him face unless, if he's got like a perfect game going, sure, whatever, right? Who cares? A no hitter or, 1 hitter, whatever. Like it's not impossible for him to face those guys at their time, but on average, I would be very surprised if it's one of your normal starts or, 80th to 20th percentile outcomes, right? Unless it's at that very top bit, he's going to only go 2 times to the lineup. What does that mean? That means 18 batters. That means if he's perfect, 6 innings. He probably won't be perfect. Probably 5 innings. He could easily be a 4-inning start for him. Again, that bullpen's rested. And if this is a tight ball game, which it should be because of the fact that park makes it harder to have blowouts. Again, we like the Dodgers here. We think it's a good price, but we both think lower scoring game. That means more likely to be closer. If it's a 2-0 game here in the fifth inning, one guy on, and you got the top of that lineup coming out, he's gone, right? You got to go to a reliever. You've got a rested bullpen. Why not use them in this situation? So there's just a lot of ways we can win this. So Bob Miller under 5.5 strikeouts is our pitcher prop of the day. Cousin Jared, we kept it to 40 minutes, so we didn't go a full hour, which I was a little bit worried. I knew we had a lot to talk about here today. Do you have any parting words for people for their weekend?
Nope.
All right. We've said enough, I guess, right?
And we have said enough today.
All right,
that is correct.
All right. There we go. All right. Thank you for watching this episode of Picks with the Professor. Don't forget to subscribe so you can enjoy the sports betting content. Providing this channel is dropped right into your feed. I'll be back again on Monday, joined with our friend Jake to talk about that baseball slate. But until then, as always, best of luck. And remember, you can get your betting money, but please don't bet your eating money.